All right, today we're going deep. I mean, really deep inside our own bodies to talk about something you probably think you already know. We're talking about mitochondria. But I want you to just forget everything you learned in high school biology. Because the real story, it's way, way more surprising. You remember this, right? This exact slide, or something kind of like it. Mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. They make ATP, which is the energy. It's a simple, tidy definition. It's the one-liner that everybody knows. But what if that's like calling the entire internet a good way to send emails? I mean, what if being the powerhouse is just their day job? The real story, this secret life of our mitochondria, is so much more complex and, honestly, just way more fascinating. So to start, we have to completely throw out that old image of mitochondria being these lonely, isolated little factories. The truth is, they're part of this massive, dynamic social network inside every single one of your cells. Yeah, that old textbook picture of a simple bean shape just kind of floating around in the cell, turns out that's completely wrong. With new imaging tech, we can now see the reality. They actually form this interconnected, city-wide web that's constantly changing, constantly adapting. And this network, it is incredibly active. I mean, mitochondria are always on the move. They merge together, that's called fusion, to share resources, and then they split apart, that's fission, to make new ones or to quarantine any damage. They even build these physical bridges to other parts of the cell, like the endoplasmic reticulum, creating these super important communication hubs. The whole thing is a system built for constant change and quality control. And through this incredible network, they do way more than just manage power. They're actually acting as signaling centers, sending out these little secret messages that can affect not just one cell, but your entire body. So, how do they do this? Well, the key to their secret communication lies in their own unique DNA. This is actually a relic from billions of years ago when mitochondria were their own separate bacteria. And this separate little genome lets them create their own signals, totally independent from the cell's main command center in the nucleus. And that brings us to the messages themselves, something called mitochondria-derived peptides, or MDPs. The easiest way to think about these, they're like cellular text messages. They're encoded by that special mitochondrial DNA we just saw, and these tiny little proteins like humanin and MOTS, they travel out of the mitochondria to help regulate our metabolism and communicate stress levels to the rest of the body. They influence our health and maybe even how long we live. Okay, so if mitochondria are these critical communicators, these essential regulators, what happens when their network starts to break down? Well, that's when they go from being the cell's powerhouse to being the center of the storm. And this just shows you how tiny changes can have absolutely catastrophic results. Let's look at two devastating neurodegenerative diseases. In Alzheimer's, these communication hubs we talked about, they get too tight, and it causes a flood of calcium into the mitochondria, which leads to stress and cell death. But in some types of Parkinson's, the connections are messed up in a different way, leading to too little calcium transfer. The cell gets starved of the proper signals. It's the same system with opposite failures, and both end in disease. And get this, here's a number that just shows you how deeply intertwined this whole system is. Even though they have their own DNA, a staggering 99% of the proteins that mitochondria need to even function are actually built using the blueprints from our main nuclear DNA and then imported in. It's this constant, non-stop conversation between the nucleus and the mitochondria that's absolutely essential for life. And this deep connection is also at the heart of one of the biggest processes of all, aging. You see, as we get older, our mitochondrial function just declines. And this isn't just a side effect of aging. A lot of scientists now think it's an essential driver of aging. For example, it's a key reason fertility declines. And maybe even more profound, the byproducts made by mitochondria directly control our epigenome. That's the system of chemical tags that tells our genes when to turn on and off. So as our mitochondria start to fail, we lose that critical genetic control. Okay, so we've laid out the problem. Dysfunctional mitochondria are tied to disease, they're tied to aging, but this new understanding is also opening the door to a really revolutionary idea. What if we could actually fix the network? I mean, this is the question that's driving a whole new field of medicine. It sounds like something out of science fiction, right? But if you can trace the problem back to a faulty little organelle, could you perform a transplant on a microscopic level? The answer, amazingly, seems to be yes. Researchers have actually developed a process for this. It starts by isolating healthy mitochondria from a donor. Then they prepare them in this special solution. Then they administer it, often with just a simple injection. And here is the most incredible part. Cells all over the body can actually absorb these healthy donated mitochondria right out of the bloodstream to replace their own broken ones. And look, this is not just a theory. Check out this data from a study on mice that have Leigh syndrome, which is a fatal mitochondrial disease. On the left, that low bar, that's the poor motor function of the untreated mice. But on the right, after they received transplants of healthy mitochondria, look at that jump. Their motor function improved significantly. Now, I know this is a pretty complex scientific figure, but the main idea here is actually simple, and it's powerful. What you're seeing is how transplanted cells, those are the green ones, are literally releasing their healthy mitochondria into the body, and then those healthy mitochondria travel and get picked up by the host zone cells all over the place. It's like rebooting the whole system from the inside out. So the crucial takeaway here is that this really radical idea, it works, at least in these animal models. This one intervention improved health, it restored function, and it dramatically increased survival. That is a powerful proof of concept for a whole new way of thinking about disease. All of this research really pushes us toward one final big question, posed by some of the leading scientists in the field. Are we stepping into a new era where we start to see health and disease primarily through the lens of our mitochondria? Turns out, the powerhouse of the cell might just be the master controller of our entire biology.